Well, welcome to the tutorial on writing ACI construction specifications. The presenters are going to be me, Aimee Pergalsky, and Nick Carino. Nick and I are both members of E707, which is Specification Education, and the TCSC, to be explained later, and ACI 301. The outline for the course is a review of the types of ACI documents, what the ACI-ASTM agreement is, also a little bit on the TAC Construction Standards Committee, the TCSC, and we will get a little deep into the weeds on the TCM Chapter 6, which covers construction specifications, format and style, referral phrases and checklists, referencing other ACI construction specifications, the guides for specifying concrete construction, and then we will wrap up with a summary. ACI documents fall into two general categories: standardized documents, which are developed through an ACI standardization process. That standardization process includes a period of public discussion. The non-standardized documents are developed through the ACI consensus process, and they are not presented for public discussion. The ACI standards fall into a couple of categories. They are design standards, and those include code requirements, code cases, along with acceptance criteria and design specifications. Construction standards include the construction specifications, the topic of today's webinar, and material specifications, test methods, testing services specifications, inspection services specifications. The two asterisked topics, material specs and test methods, fall under an ACI-ASTM agreement, and that needs to be considered when those documents are being written or considered. The other AC documents are documents that we're all familiar with: the guides, reports, handbooks and manuals, emerging technology reports, the technical notes, and the ITG guides and reports. The ASTM ACI agreement is a formalized agreement between ACI and ASTM, whereby ACI will refrain from writing specs for over-the-counter engineering materials, and ASTM complementarily will refrain from writing standards related to design and construction practices. Anytime that ACI writes a test method or material specification is done so under that agreement, and are only done so if ASTM does not have such a standard or spec and there is an industry need. And it's permitted in the TCM, the Technical Committee Manual, if those standards don't exist. And the coordination task groups works to organize appropriate an ASTM subcommittee for those materials and materials test methods and specifications. And once that subcommittee has been organized and has a task group together to write those documents, ACI withdraws its standards after the standard ASTM standard is adopted. Okay, the referencing ACI documents. ACI standards are written in mandatory language. They are intended to be referenced by model codes or contract documents. The other documents, the guides, reports, etc., are written in non-mandatory language, and they should not be referenced in contract documents. If needed to reference the non-mandatory languages in contract documents, then those documents have to be adopted, but with mandatory language in mind. TCSC, the TAC Construction Standards Committee, is really an oversight committee for all of the specification efforts of ACI. It was established in 1971 as the TSC, the Technical Specifications Committee, and it was established to assist committees to develop specifications. In 2001, its role was expanded to review specification development by the Institute and ostensibly and ultimately to prevent conflicts among ACI specifications. So it really is an oversight committee. The current mission includes assisting technical committees in preparing and maintaining specifications in the correct format and language, and then also manage the specification development by the Institute. The TSC activities include advising TAC on the need for new specifications, reviewing and updating Chapter 6 of the TCM, which will be under discussion in a little bit by both Nick and me, and then also to maintain liaison relationships with the specification writing committees. We also assist committees in developing new specifications, particular to format and language. The TCM includes information on committee operations, the balloting process, the format and style of each of the ACI document types, wherein Chapter 6 deals specifically with construction specifications. Also how to run technical sessions and other ACI technical policies. The first step in developing an ACI specification, for a little bit of background, there are currently 18 ACI committees that have or are developing specifications. In 4.2.1 of the TCM, TAC approval is required before starting work on an ACI construction specification. There generally is a need statement. The request also includes the scope of the specification and a general outline. TCSC reviews that proposal and makes the recommendation to TAC, and then assigns a member as a liaison to the spec writing committee to assist with that specification writing effort. Chapter 6 of the TCM has 5 sections: general, format, language, reference, standards, and a guide for specifying concrete construction. 6.1, the general section, relates to general information, among which is the specifications are written to the contractor by the specifier, and they follow the format given in the second section, 6.2. There is no commentary, unlike a code document, and the notes to the specifier and checklists are not part of the specification. The notes and the checklists provide guidance and additional information to the specifier. In terms of format, there are 2 types of specifications. There's a single item or narrow scope specification that addresses a single product or process. The broad scope specification or multi-item specification addresses more than one product or process. The CSI 3-part section format is followed, with Part 1 being general, Part 2 products, Part 3 execution. Some examples within ACI of a narrow scope or single item specification is ACI 548. 548 has several narrow scope single item specifications on the books, and then ACI 301 is an example of a multi-item or broad scope specification, and 301 is the specification for structural concrete. The 3-part section format of specifications covers Part 1 general, which addresses administrative requirements including scope, interpretation, definitions, submittals, reference standards, and acceptance criteria or quality assurance. Part 2 addresses products and materials, which define the requirements for acceptable products and materials and also the source quality control. Part 3 is the execution. The execution describes what needs to be done in terms of preparation, sequence, installation, what tolerances are required or acceptable, testing, repair, and protection. The outline of a single item specification includes the title page, which has the title, the roster, the synopsis, keywords, and TOC. Part 1, general. Part 2, products. Part 3, execution. And then notes to the specifier, which include general notes and checklists. The outline of a multiple item specification includes that same title page, Section 1, general. Section 2, the first technical section, which then is broken into the 3 subcategories of general, product, and execution. Section 3 can be a second technical section, and additional technical sections can be added as required by the specification. It also includes the notes to specifier, NTS, and the checklists. Section 6.2.6.1 of the Technical Committee Manual provides the preferred wording to be used in the scope section. It can be included verbatim or edited as necessary for the particular topic. The scope language also needs to avoid conflicts between single item specifications with scopes that may overlap scopes of multi-item specs, such as ACI 301 or 350.5. The language also clarifies the relationship of the specification to the contract documents and reference standards, and permits contractors to submit written alternatives for consideration. The avoidance of conflicting requirements, an example is do not use the specification in conjunction with ACI 301 or 350.5 unless contract documents state that the specification governs for the work covered by the scope. And the scope also excludes the notes to specifier. The notes to specifiers specifically are not part of the specification. The TCM also addresses recommended wording and rules, what the rules of interpretation and explanation of the words, some words and phrases may be. In the world of ACI specifications, the word "and" indicates that all of the connective items, conditions, and requirements or events apply. So anytime you have a sentence that includes the word "and" in the world of ACI, that means that all of the connected items connected by that "and" apply. The word "or" in the world of ACI specifications indicates that the connected items, conditions, and requirements or events apply singularly. And the use of the verb may and will indicates that the specification provision is for information to the contractor. 6.2 also provides definitions to be included, if appropriate, in an ACI specification without modification. Terms like accepted, that means determined by the architect engineer to be in compliance with the contract documents, or submit, to provide the architect engineer for review, are to be incorporated without modification. And there are lists of defined terms. Do not include the definition if the term is not used in the specification. Regarding language in 6.3 of the TCM relates to instructions to the contractor. Specifications are written to the contractor on what he must do to construct a particular item or structure. Understand that ACI specifications become part of legally enforceable contract documents if referenced in contract documents. And as such, ACI specifications need to be clear, they need to be correct, complete, and concise. In terms of clarity of language, the use of simple, declarative, or imperative statements is important. Do not state the reason for a requirement. You don't have to give any kind of rationale or explanation regarding an instruction. It is best to use simple sentences. Avoid complicated sentences whose meaning depends on punctuation. Also use consistent language and grammatical construction throughout the document, and use words that are simple and understood easily and cannot be misinterpreted. Avoid subjective words that are open to interpretation. Be correct. Present information accurately and precisely. Use correct words. Understand what the difference between assure, ensure, and insure are, and use those correctly. Furnish, install, provide, all have different definitions and interpretations. The use of either or both and will and shall. Use correct punctuation and grammar. Use a serial comma. Use no bulleted items. You can see on the cartoon on the right the difference that punctuation makes in a sentence and its interpretation. Be complete. Do not omit important information. The contractor will bid on what is written in the specification, and it may not be what the owner wants. Some extreme examples are in the photographs. Be concise. Eliminate unnecessary words without sacrificing the clarity, correctness, and the completeness. Consider using streamlining for itemized lists. The example below is that, quote, material shall meet the requirements of the following specifications, and then a list is given. Aggregate, ASTM C33, 33M. Portland cement, ASTM C150, 150M. The shorter the better, the simpler the better. And use the imperative mood. Begin the sentence with an action verb, such as place concrete in one layer, and avoid the passive voice, such as the concrete shall be placed in one layer. First example is clear, concise, has unnecessary, or has all the necessary instruction, and I've actually seen quite a few specifications that use the passive voice. So keep it short, keep it terse. Some of the common problems with spec writing can be avoided by adhering to Chapter 6 of the TCM, and then Chapter 9 gives additional guidance. Subject and verb agreement should be consistent. They must agree in number. And then parallel structure, in other words, use the same grammatical form in a sentence, paragraph, or list when including more than one idea. Avoiding inappropriate terms is one of the problems that are seen in specifications. There may be missing information through the use of phrases such as required, as appropriate. Also avoid legal jargon like here and after, therewith, theretofore, etc. It serves no purpose and is open for misinterpretation. Also, avoid the use of absolutes, any, all, every. Be very, very specific in the use of lists and instructions. Use accepted or reviewed rather than approved. And then avoid unnecessary words. The specification can be edited to take out words like accessory words, thus and as and so forth. All typically is not needed. The word contractor is implied since specifications are written to the contractor, and it's unnecessary to use contractor as a subject of a sentence pretty typically. Some other common problems, don't use conditional phrases like if, when, and where. They are not interchangeable in the world of ACI documents and specifications. If means on the condition or in the case that. When means at the time or in the event that, when the event will happen. Where means a location or whatever place. So, in ACI specification language and writing, use the word when for cases that refer to time, use where for cases that refer to position or location, and then use if for other cases. Shall versus will. Additional problems with spec writing. Shall is used to indicate a mandatory action to be performed by the contractor. Will is used to provide information to the contractor on what will be done by the owner or owner's representatives. For options, use either or to indicate the options, and never use may. May is a non-mandatory word, and it may or may not get done if it's used. When writing lists in specifications, capitalize the first word unless it's a number, symbol, or equation. Do not use punctuation at the end of a line unless it's a sentence. Do use lowercase letters in parentheses for those lists. Numbered lists are permitted if the items are sequential actions. Don't use bullets. Don't use and at the end of the next to last item. And this particular slide illustrates all of those points very well. Regarding tolerances, refer to ACI 117. It's also a mandatory language document, a standardized document, unless it does not cover a required tolerance. Specify tolerances not covered in ACI 117, and then notify 117 for the need to add those tolerances to their document. Up next is Nick Carino with really getting into the weeds regarding writing ACI specifications.